Hello, beautiful people of Detroit basketball Piston fandom. I'm your host, Mike, with the Pistons exclusive, and today I'm bringing you another news shot where the topic of discussion will be the firing of Monty Williams. About time, about time. Oh, but also the issues with inside the Pistons front office. Possible issues. Probable issues. Now, before we get into that, let's talk about our giveaway. That's right, folks. Giving away the new NCAA Football 2025. We'll have one for the YouTube community, one for the Facebook community. On the YouTube side, all you need to do is subscribe to the channel, like this video, and comment on it. On the Facebook side, you'll need to follow this page, be a member of the group, like and comment on this video. Number of times you comment is the number of times you're entering the win. The game comes out July 19th, 2024, which is a little bit less than a month from now. Don't be like Tommy G. No one likes to be like Tom Gores. Don't be like Tom Gores. Don't be like Tommy T-shirts. Do not drag your feet on this. Just do it. Get the liking, the commenting, the subscribing, the following, the joining of the group. Just do it. Alright, y'all. I'm done messing around. Now we got that out the way. Let's talk about your Detroit basketball Pistons and the firing of Monty Williams. Let's do it. Finally, your Detroit Pistons fire Monty Williams. It was the long-awaited move by the Pistons. One that should have been done ages ago. I came on here several weeks back talking about how firing Monty will probably be the first thing that needs to be done this offseason. The Pistons, of course, dragged their feet on it. And I'm assuming, like many others, that it had something to do with the amount of money he was owed. Tom Gores and several beat writers for the team were talking openly about buying out his contract back in May or April-ish. So in my mind, that signaled, at least to me, that removing Monty would have been the first order of business. Obviously, that wasn't the case. They fired Troy Weaver, which also needed to be done, but not in the order they did it. Very out of place, to be quite honest. Now, reports were circulating that late last week that there was a high potential that Monty would be staying coach of the Pistons. And granted, they weren't from sources within the organization, one being James Edwards. And some point out that because James Edwards didn't say it, then these reports really didn't matter. The problem is that James Edwards didn't say anything. So, in no fault to James, he's great. He gives us good insight to everything inside the organization. Hell, he's in it, basically. So, I mean, he's got the first-hand scoop. But the problem is that when these reports came out, he never tilted his hat one way or another. He just stayed silent. So, again, love him, love his reporting, but if you don't say anything, if he's staying or going, coming or leaving, and you just let the other reporters report on it, you're not doing anybody any good. You're just letting the news flow. It'd have been nice to get, since he's so close to the organization, it'd have been nice to get a little bit of a pumping of the brakes. Well, hold on there, guys. I can confidently say that, like, example, he could have said, whoa, hold on there, guys. I can confidently say that there hasn't been any talk one way or another about it. So tread carefully with the current reports that are coming out. Really didn't get nothing. There was a lot of silence on his part. The other thing that took place was that the Pistons hired a shooting coach in Fred Vinson, who has connections with Monty Williams. But more importantly, with Trajan, which led many to believe that this cemented Monty's stay here. Because it was kind of the way people were framing it is because it was like a triangular relationship. Monty knows Fred Vincent. Vincent knows Trajan. Trajan knows Vincent, who also knows Monty. And then on top of that, the reports were saying the hire of Fred Vincent was for Monty's team. So, a little bit of a wording issue going on here. And also the fact that we don't have guys like James Edwards shooting any of this down. Just staying silent through the whole thing. So, it led many to believe that Monty was staying another year, plus the reports, plus the signs on the wall. It just felt like, and the fact that the Pistons didn't fire him 2 weeks ago when they fired Troy Weaver. So it was like, yeah, Monty's looks like he's staying. But to many surprise, he was fired. And the thing is that he was fired so late, so randomly, it caught a lot of us by surprise. Now, I'll backtrack a little bit. I wouldn't necessarily say we were surprised that he was fired. Most of us, myself included, pundits, everybody thought he should be fired. We said he should be fired. We all felt he will be gone. He will be fired. It's just everything leading up to this week, because he was fired a couple days ago, was pointing to signs saying that he would be staying. So, him being just fired on a random, what was that, Wednesday, Thursday, when it felt like he was staying, caught everybody by surprise. And even Monty Williams, who said he was blindsided. Blindsided, says Monty. He must have not been able to see over those stacks of hundreds that he has. Can see it coming. Stacks so high. I don't blame him, man. If I had that much money, I wouldn't be able to see it too. But yeah, Monte said he was caught blindsided by the whole thing. Be honest with you, a lot of Pistons fans felt blindsided by it too, even though we all felt he should be fired. So it's really an interesting situation that played out here in the last couple days, because it was quite a bit of a curveball by Tom Gores, who fired him himself. Tommy T-shirts doesn't just throw T-shirts. He throws curveballs too. Just whipping them right here in the middle of summer. So, that leads us to the next point. And this is from Vincent Goodwill. Of the Pistons, a leaked source told Yahoo Sports recently there's 4 factions in that building. 4 factions. Not 1, not 2, not 3,
not 4, not 5, not 6, not 7.
But 4 factions within inside the Pistons organization. And getting on the same page should be the first objective. That goes well beyond Troy Weaver and Monty Williams, and there's a lot of work to do in Motown. So the next point that I want to make here is that, is there a rift inside the Detroit Pistons organization? And it goes back to a lot of the things that I was describing a second ago. You have what felt like the random firing of Monty Williams, a shooting coach that was brought in for him, and Troy Weaver being fired when it felt like he should have been fired later in the offseason. Because he should been able to help Trajan get situated with inside the organization without having to fire him just, I wouldn't say out the blue, everybody knew he was going to get fired, but fired immediately, giving Trajan all this work he needs to get done, which we'll talk about a little later. So, and then it also points back to this post by Vincent Goodwill about there being 4 factions within inside the organization. Now, in his article, Vincent does describe one of the factions being one of the third-party organizations with inside the Pistons. Not with inside the Pistons. Let me rephrase that. One of these third-party hiring organizations hired by the Pistons to help him get guys like Trajan and other hires in the past. So he does reference that. Now the second one would be Tom Gores, and many believe the third to be Arntellum, who we've talked about before on these videos. Who the mysterious 4th faction is with inside the Pistons organization, we don't know. It's a complete mystery. And I'm only putting together the tea leaves and just assuming that the second and third are Tom Gores and Arntellum. They could be together, and there's a mystery 3rd one and a mystery 4th one. So that's even an assumption on my part. So, yeah. So the Pistons feel like a big corporate organizational mess. That's what it feels like. And that's kind of what we're reading here. Now, from the reports, it sounded like Tom Gores didn't want to fire Troy Weaver. That decision was made by Arntellum. And Trajan, after requesting Weaver be demoted to the team scout. Let me just let everybody know. Troy Weaver, after parting ways with the Pistons a couple weeks ago, Troy Weaver is up for a couple general managing positions right now. Granted, it's for the Washington Wizards, so take it for what it is. But it's better than just being the team, taking a demotion all the way down to the team scout. Yeah, it's like a no-brainer, of course. So him not accepting the demotion, just even throwing it out there to him, is a total insult to his intelligence. At that point, you might as well fire him. And of course, he denied the demotion and he was let go. Now, secondly, kind of already mentioned before that Trajan hires Fred Vinson like 3 days before Monte's fired, and he's the shooting coach mentioned before, and the reports were emphasizing for Monte's team. And that followed reports during that same time period from the previous slide about Monte still staying with the team for another year. Now, as we've seen Wednesday, that's obviously not the case, with Tom Gores himself firing Monty Williams. Opinion here. Hot take. Hot take. To me, it sounds like there's a bit of a power struggle going on at the very top of the Pistons organization. You have Tom Gores wanting to keep Weaver to only be let go by Tallum and Langdon. And then Trajan bringing on staff for Monte, only for Monte to be fired by the owner himself Wednesday, middle of this past week. But it's not just what I'm saying here in this video about who fired who that gives me this feeling. It's also the order of operations in which everyone is being fired. As mentioned before, a couple weeks ago, before about the timing of Troy Weaver's firing. I know everyone's celebrating these firings, but the way they're giving everyone the axe in the order, in the timing, just doesn't make a ton of sense. It really feels like a jumbled mess. Now, I pointed out to the video that I made 2 weeks ago that I felt that Monte should have been fired when Weaver was fired 2 weeks ago. Weaver should have been kept on to at least around or near or even after the NBA draft to get Trajan acclimated and prepped for this draft. Again, 2 weeks ago I said the last thing the Pistons want to do is to have Trajan do a coaching search, a GM search, and an NBA draft, all within a couple weeks of Trajan being hired. And lo and behold, here we are, 2 weeks later, and that's exactly where we're at. Ta-da! Again, Pistons fans can celebrate to the high heavens. Part of me feels like a big weight has been lifted off my shoulders too. But I don't think we're out of the woods yet. And we might not even be close. Again, opinion. Hot take. I feel like there's a lot of issues at the very top that's making this offseason feel like a mess, whether it be a power struggle or complete incompetence. Probably both. The way things are playing out, they're not playing out ideally for a team that's cleaning house. Now, we're in a position where Trajan will be having to scramble for the NBA draft while simultaneously hiring a GM and coach before the season starts. Now, reports are saying that he already has a GM lined up in what is his name, Blackstone, but is he the GM? They say his official unofficial title while being hired in was Trajan's right hand man. So take that for what it is. People are saying it's the GM, but no official title has really been put on him. And his qualifications for being here is that he's a decent executive in the NBA who has close connections to Trajan, which leads me to the next point that I want to make here is that, well, put a pin in that. Let me just talk about the NBA draft real quick. The way things look, the only way he's going to be able to accomplish the GM search, the coaching search, and the NBA draft in an adequate amount of time without it spilling over to the training camp and other parts of the season, off season, is if Trajan and his staff just draft a guy that they think is going to be a good fit, you know, and not really put much thought in the scouting process. And if they go through with, and that's if they go through with the 5th pick and not trade it. And then they hire a GM and coach that are already affiliated with Trajan and his connections to New Orleans and or Brooklyn or San Antonio, places he's familiar with, people he's familiar with, and on the surface that sounds fine, right? Trajan's bringing in his guys. But that's not necessarily going after the best people for the job with a league-wide hiring search. You're kind of shortcutting the process by just bringing in more guys that you're buddies with. So, as mentioned before, they've kind of already done that with Michael Blackstone, because he's expected to be the GM, but nothing official has been said about him, about his official title. But that's basically how he'll get his job if he is GM, that he's directly affiliated with Trajan. So it's a lot to cram in a couple months' time. It's not ideal at all. Cleaning house in the most untimely, awkward manner. And you still have to do a bunch of searching for a coach and scouting for the draft. It's not ideal. With that being said, Trajan had a press conference yesterday, and I will be going more in depth about the things that were said during that press conference. The other thing that I'll be going in depth about is the coaching search that we kind of touched on right here, with names being thrown out like Chris Quinn, Sean Sweeney, James Borrego, as I pictured in the slide before. And he's mentioned in terms of him having strong connections with Trajan. So he's a good example of, are we going after the best guy, or is this just a guy with a connection to Trajan? The only silver lining with that is that he has other interests from other NBA teams, which is actually a really good sign. So, I mean, it's possible. And let me preface, too. Yeah, we might be shortcutting the process or skimming it, as mentioned earlier. But sometimes the best guy for the job is the guy that Trajan knows. So I'll just throw that in there too. It's not a one thing or the other. It can be both. So take it for what it is. It's just a word of warning. A cautionary tale. And then you also have guys like Bickerstaff and the long shot names that you always hear every offseason. Bill Laimbeer, Chauncey Billups. But yeah, it's one of those things that we're gonna have to keep an eye on. Coach is gonna be very important, and as you can see, not hiring the right coach can really hold things up, no matter how much you pay him. So yeah, I'm going to be looking forward to it, and I do plan on making more videos in the future about it. And hopefully, when the time comes, we'll get a decent, solid hire out of it. Hopefully, for the sake of the fan base, for the sake of the organization, for the sake of winning Detroit basketball, I'm hoping we nail the next hire right. I'm hoping that Trajan was the right hire. Time will tell. All right, y'all. This was your news shot of Monty getting fired. Sorry it took a few days to get processed, but I'm just glad I'm putting it out there to hear so you can hear my thoughts on it and put it on record on what's going on with the Pistons. All right, y'all. Take care. I'm out.